1, 2, 3, 4. Chop, chop, chop.
It's Cure of the What Now.
Gather the ingredients.
Cure of the What Now.
Not much time to prep before it's time to start the show.
Oh.
Guests are arriving.
Cure of the What Now.
Everybody's smiling.
Cure of the What Now.
A tasty party starting. Now it's time to go. Woo!
Ooh. Served hot and fresh.
Itadakimasu. Hello, fellow apprentice warriors, and welcome to episode 31 of
Season 2 of Cure of the What Now. Yum.
the one show where we know Narcistoru is way too pretty for prison. He's just not gonna have a good time.
I think that his people skills will shine through.
That's what's gonna shine through. You're right. You're right. My name is Kat, and you might be wondering, am I an apprentice warrior? Am I a leprechaun?
Are you a boy or a girl?
Hard to tell. None of the answers to those questions is going to be apparent.
Excellent. I'm your co-host, Joel, and even though I started podcasting out of a sense of passion, I now feel like I should probably quit because it hasn't brought me the ends to my goals. But then, my what's the opposite of a protege? My mentors appeared in a dream to me and said that I should continue doing podcasting because it's important to me. So here I am, doing the thing that I was already passionate about, but now with the encouragement of the Weekly Planet.
I was going to say, who would you consider your podcast mentors?
Definitely the Weekly Planet. If you haven't checked them out, do check them out. They're great.
They are the energy that I strive to encapsulate on this podcast. So anytime you make me a face like, what is this tangent about big sandwiches? I'm like, Weekly Planet, back in my mind. I trained for this. I can be Australian. Oi, mate.
Excellent. News and announcements. I actually remembered to put up the bloopers and extras compilations for episodes 21 through 30 up on YouTube. Woo! By the time you're listening to this, it will be live. I don't put those compilations on Libsyn in the podcast feed. I'm not entirely sure why. It just doesn't feel appropriate for the Libsyn feed in a way that I can't explain. So that's just the way that it's going to be. Do check them out, and that also includes bloopers and extras from the sweet special retrospective that we did, so please enjoy.
I forgot we did that episode. I'm very excited for those bloopers and extras. Every once in a while I go and listen to them just because I forget, what kinds of things we say.
Oh,
sometimes it's kind of off the rails. At one point we had a bit about you laying an egg.
I don't remember that.
Or something like that. I stumbled upon it when I was reviewing one of the bloopers videos, and I was like, what the are we talking about? What is this?
At the very beginning of the podcast, I've told this story, but it's been a little while, and I think it was on King of the What Now, so maybe our Precure fans haven't heard. But I noticed that Curtis and I would use like and and a bunch of other words pretty regularly, and I was so nervous that, what was it that I would say? I would say fantastic.
And absolutely.
And absolutely, in a very specific cadence. So I have a file called Fantastic that has different tracks for each of the things that we say a lot, and there's 5 minutes of likes in different tones and stuff, and there's a couple of other ones. I don't keep that file up to date very much anymore, but I do have another one called Joel's Soundboard, I guess, and every once in a while I just find a random 5-second clip from it and I listen to it, and there's some stuff in there. The most important part about doing something like this, if you're not in it for the money, is to make sure that you're enjoying yourself.
Absolutely, and I do think that we have a good time. I personally am always amused by myself, but whether or not you are amused, it depends on the day.
Depends on the day, depends on the mood, depends on if Saturn is in retrograde, I think is a thing that happens, so.
All right, so since we're talking about podcasting, pitch me a Precure season where they are podcasters.
Okay, so I think the most important thing is that, so the pink, or the leader, because they're not always pink, but the leader is almost always someone who's really enthusiastic about the subject. So I think that maybe the lead Kier is someone who listens to a lot of podcasts and really enjoys them and thinks that they would be neat. And also starts it up maybe with their dad or mom to start with or something, and they don't really know what they want the podcast to be about. And what ends up happening throughout the season is they end up going out and finding other members of the community and like interviewing them and stuff, and the bad guys always interfere with the guest in some way, and then that's when the Precure have to step in. And I think the yellow cure, because yellow seems to be one of the core colors that's like in every season, but the yellow can be someone who's really good at bringing the energy to the podcast. Like, they know, like, what makes a funny podcast and what makes a scary podcast and that sort of thing. They're, like, sound effect people. They have, like, the keyboard or whatever. And the blue is more technically minded and make sure that, like, they're using good mics, making sure that they have a proper schedule, that they're releasing weekly on the same day.
We need a blue cure. I was going to say maybe the blue is like their social media manager.
Oh,
like,
yeah, okay.
This is how we grow this into an actual thing. Which of the cures would you give the famous parent to? Like the world famous radio host?
Yellow has a disc jockey parent who just like plays all the goofy sound effects. But the blue has like an actual like the Joe Rogan of the Precure world, but also not quite Joe Rogan.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Like as famous as Joe Rogan, but slightly different in tone.
Yeah, they have somebody who does a lot of interviews with a lot of different kinds of people.
Yeah, they could be like the Oprah of their world, or like the Ellen DeGeneres or whatever. I know that there's some stuff about Ellen DeGeneres, but you know what I mean, like the talk show host who's famous for having all these different guests on.
Absolutely. Would the bad guys for this season, would their thing be like, who cares about other people's opinions? You only need to listen to yourself.
Yeah, they might be egotists or whatever, or they might be people who maybe they have their own life advice podcast, but it's like, it's really bad advice that like no one should follow or whatever.
I thought about that recently. I was like, what if, because I keep getting targeted Facebook ads for like those advice columns. And I don't know why, because I didn't read them before Facebook started giving me ads for them. But I was like, I could do this. But then I thought, what if I purposely gave really terrible advice? That would be funny. A podcast where I read people's like Reddit posts or whatever, and I give just the worst scorched earth nuclear response to these posts.
That would be very interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think the concern with something like that is somebody actually implementing your advice and then being like, that was terrible advice. It's supposed to be. It's a comedy show.
You could set it up like that improv game of like good, better, worse advice or whatever, and then you just go all in on the worst advice. You know, you spend like 2 seconds giving the good advice, you give 3 seconds giving the better advice, and then just 20 minutes doing the bad advice. What do you think you would do for the mid-season cure?
Maybe you'd have someone... Okay, so I'm of two minds on this, because a lot of the time the mid-season cure is, like, special in some way.
Like
Princess Toa from another dimension. Laura is the mermaid queen.
Ciel was already, like, a master patissier or whatever. Is that the word for someone who... Okay. I get the word for the person who makes the cakes mixed up with the place where you sell the cakes.
That's because they're the same word.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah. It's
Thank
very
you, France.
confusing. And it's a noun. Like, you can make patisserie. Patissier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have a whole patissier week in British Bake Off. But anyway, focusing in here, I like the idea of the mid-season cure being a listener.
Okay. I really like that.
Yeah, who was like inspired. Maybe they were somehow recruited by the bad guys because they listened and they were like, I want to be on this show, but you can't really go be on someone else's show. And the bad guys are like, who cares about that show? But then the good guys are like, we still have your first email you ever sent us or something.
Okay, I like that. I like the idea, not to get too political, but there's some discussions about pipelines on YouTube and in social media and how some people end up getting pushed a certain way on the political spectrum. And so I like the idea of doing like a kid-friendly version of that, where like the bad advice givers, like somehow they give like easy to implement advice, or advice that's like, it feels good even though it's not good for you long term. And so I like the idea of this fan character listening to both podcasts, the Precure podcast and the Villains podcast, but the Villains podcast is more alluring, and so they kind of like get sucked into that, and then the Precure could be like breaking someone free of that particular pipeline, someone who has the counterpoints, for example. So I think that would be kind of interesting.
That's good. I like it. Okay, what is our henshin item for this season? Because, I mean, obviously the wand kind of looks like a mic.
Oh man, Mike's kind of the only one that I really associate with. Could they be headphones? Do you think?
It could be, or what about like a recorder and it has colored buttons?
Yes, okay. That sounds great. That's a wrap. I want it on my desk by Monday.
Click! Podcast on!
All right. So.
Haha. So. That's another thing that goes into the soundboard. This week, we watched Delicious Party 29, Doki Doki 23 and 24, and Glitter Force 17 and 18. Next week, we will be watching Delicious Party 30, Doki Doki 25 and 26, Glitter Force 19 and 20. Before I get into the succinct summaries, let me just say, we got a lot of new characters these episodes. We got 2 new evil generals in Doki Doki. One's named Leva and one's named Gula. Gula.
One of them, we also met the civilian form for Cure Ace, and her name is Madoka Augury, which is kind of funny because now there's 2 Madokas. I really thought that they'd never had a first name that repeated throughout all the seasons, but this is the first time I'm aware of it. So I've noticed some people call her Augury to differentiate her from Cure Celine.
I was going to say, isn't Madoka her last name and Cure Celine Madoka's her first name?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that they're both Madoka first name. You can look that up and tell me how wrong I was. The point is, in casual conversation, we have 2 Cures who have the same name.
Okay, so we'll probably call her Augury.
Probably. And then in the other show, who was the other character that we met? Oh, we met a new Cook Kingdom apprentice type character whose name I definitely will not be pronouncing correctly, but it's like Sefu, right?
Yeah.
Sefu?
Sefi.
It's a French spice.
Why are the French like this? It's a plant. It's like an herb, kind of like cilantro.
Okay, but it's used in cooking.
Oh, yeah. I was just sharing interesting information, you scrunkly...
I thought you were correcting me. It's like, I was right. It's something used in cooking. Just like black pepper and rosemary and fennel or whatever.
God, please, wife, no! Not the stick! I don't need the Joel was wrong stick this time!
I'm still red from the last time you broke that out. Okay. So in Delicious Party 29, Mary proposes that they're going to take the captured Narcistoru to the Ku Kingdom. And he's not sure how they're going to do it, but then it turns out that Kome, she's kind of like the old school Superman who they would just give new powers to every week. She has the ability to traverse between worlds. Why not? So they go to the Ku Kingdom. Narcistoru is sent to jail. Mary's like, you need to reflect on your actions. And Mary's like, fat chance of that, cop. And we don't see him for the rest of the episode. Maybe we'll never see him for the rest of the season.
Oh, yeah. You think that he's been sent to jail, but they don't actually have a carceral system in Cook Kingdom. What they have is the death penalty.
What they have is a boiling pot of stew, and they slowly lower you in. And you have the chance to say you're sorry before you're submerged, but Narcistoru is nothing if not stubborn.
Oh, God.
But anyways, while they're there, they meet this character that I alluded to earlier, Sefu, who is a apprentice to become a cook warrior. Turns out there's like 99 of them or 100. I think there's 99 other than her. Also, the character designer for this character has used her pronouns, but there's been some mistakes. I think some subtitles have been using he. Who cares?
I mean, you look at this character and you're like, okay, that's an enby icon.
A little
honestly.
Bit, yeah.
So, whatever.
Anyways, and so they bond with her, and she wants to become a warrior, but the problem is that she's scared of heights, and that's part of, like, the run that she has to do in order to become a fully fledged fighting Foodon. And then Secretoru shows up, and she infiltrates the Ku Kingdom, and she steals some recipes, and she summons an Ubauzo, or a Gosuri Ubauzo, I think is the name of the new type, and it looks like the girls are in trouble, but then guess what? The apprentice Sefu is given a delicious stone and is able to rise to the occasion and help them out, and now she is a fully fledged member of the Cook Warriors, fighting Foodons, as I like to call them. Then the girls all come back, and in a scene, we'll talk about it, but that is completely just out of place and does not make any sense unless you have meta knowledge. They randomly see snippets of past episodes of Star Twinkle Precure, of Healing Good Precure, and what's the third one?
Tropical Rouge?
It is Tropical Rouge Precure. Okay, I was about to say Hugto's too far back. It's not included. And that's where that episode ends. Also, Secretoru is back. He seems more robotic, but he does not play into this episode at all. We'll discuss that in a bit. In Doki Doki 23, Cure Ace just showed up on the battlefield. Regina gets like a weird heart flutter and is like, I have to destroy this bitch. Cure Ace is so powerful that she just instantly takes out Regina. Regina's defeated, and she screams that she hates the Precure, which really breaks Mana's heart. Cure Ace is like, Mana, get over it. You need to be a Precure. And Mana's like, I don't know if I can be. And Ace goes, okay, I'm taking your lovely, by the way. So she takes the love charm and she just leaves. She's like, you can have this back when you've thought about what you've done.
She punished Mana for failing the trolley problem.
Yes, there you go.
Good for her. Good for her. She also introduces us to this concept of the 5 rules of Precure, but only tells us one of them.
Yeah, and the first one is like always keep moving or something like that, like keep pushing forward. Mana spends the rest of the episode kind of depressed. The other girls wonder what they should do about it. Ai tries to cheer her up, and she kind of like goes walking about. She meets a young girl who's dressed in mostly red, who Ai seems to like, and she goes, hey, I know your cure heart, you're failing. And Mana goes, could this girl possibly, what could this mean? She goes and she saves her friends even though she doesn't have the power to transform, and then that young girl shows up and she goes, hey, surprise, I'm Cure Ace, and everyone except for the audience is surprised. She transforms and they beat the crap out of the bad guys. It's pretty satisfying to watch. And that's where that episode ends. Next episode, the girls are basically like, wow, Cure Ace is so strong. And then this girl shows up, she introduces herself. She is Makoto, or Natalie in Doki Doki What?
She's Madoka?
What did I say?
Makoto?
Yeah, there's 2 Makotos in this season. No, she shows up. I'm so sorry. She shows up and she's Madoka Augury, and she is a 4th grader, and she has a lot of strong opinions, and she basically is like, hey, Makoto, you did one of your performances, and it really sucked, and everyone gets mad, including Dobby, and Makoto's like, no, she's right, I should probably quit being a singer, because I only was a singer to find the princess, but now we found the princess, and my singing wasn't even relevant, so I should just quit, and everyone's like, you don't have to quit, and she goes, no, I have to quit. And then at the end of the episode, she goes, oh my god, I don't have to quit! I'm a genius! She transforms, she saves the day, and in the Glitter Force version, Natalie says, like, what's the second vow of Precure? I don't think they use the word vow, I think they use, like, rule or something. And it's something like, do what you want with love, and Makoto gets a power boost, and then they save the day. The subtitles for the Doki Doki version that we watched made it sound like she asked Makoto to recite the first vow again, but it was worded differently this time.
Yeah, what she said in the Doki Doki version was the 5 vows of Precure, number 1, and then she stated a different vow from the one for
than for Mana that years before.
Yes.
So I think that we're going to assume that the spirit is supposed to be that there are 5 vows and we're going to learn each of them in turn. And in the Makoto episode, she was supposed to recite the second one. Maybe there was just an error or something.
I like the idea that there's 5, but each of the girls gets a different 5.
Yeah, they basically figured out how Words of Radiance and the Stormlight Archives books were going to work before they were even published. Like, Brandon Sanderson is a fan of Doki Doki Precure.
Yeah, now I'm way jumping the gun here, just jumping it. There it is, I'm going over it. Who the is this child? I've never seen her before. She thinks she can come in here this late in the game and she can just start telling my girls what to do? Who are you? Where are your parents?
I love the energy that you're bringing to this podcast. I know that AU was particularly interested in hearing our thoughts on this character, and So to back up, you did jump the gun a little bit, but so as we kind of covered when Kirei showed up, it was clear that the show was setting up Regina to be the mid-cure. She was a bad guy who was slowly learning what friendship could mean, like many other characters we've had before. If there was going to be a mid-season cure, she's the only girl near the same age as Mana who's gotten, like, any screen time at all, who hasn't already been, like, inducted into the team. But then, Cure A shows up while Regina's fighting them, so how is that possible? And it turns out she's just like a random girl that we've never met before. And I understand why some people might feel frustrated if they expected something to go a certain way and then it didn't. But also at the same time, like, formulas can be changed, rules can be broken. It's not the weirdest thing. I still want her backstory. I still think it's weird that she showed up when she did, that she seems to already know everything about the Precure, even though we haven't ever seen her transform. As far as we know, she can only transform with Ai, who's only hatched, like, 2 days ago? So there's questions, but I'm not betrayed as some people have portrayed this episode.
Well, and, like, listen, Western fans, big baby mad about the wrong thing. Okay, so Regina, I never thought Regina was Cure Ace. And do you know why? Because I saw a picture of Cure Ace, and I knew what her cure form looked like, and she doesn't look like Regina. You know who she looks like? She looks like the princess. Yeah, which would have made perfect sense as a bonus cure if their love for her or whatever had somehow freed her from the ice and transformed her. I would have been fine with that. She is a character who's present in this show.
But she's already a princess. If she transformed, she would just, like, snap and King Selfish or whatever his name is would just, like, disintegrate. Like, the series would be over.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would be good writing or useful. I'm just saying it would have made sense to me. And so, like, I get that they wanted Regina to be Cure Ace, but I never thought Regina was going to be.
But you're also relying on meta-knowledge, aren't you? By saying that you knew what Cure Ace looked like.
If I had seen this season and I didn't know Cure Ace was coming at all, I might have guessed that Regina was going to become a cure.
I think that it was clear that her redemption is part of the overall story. I think that it's a lesson that Mana is learning, and it's kind of like the how sometimes you have rival characters that grow at the same speed as the main character. I think she fits a lot of the tropes and rules, but it's not a big betrayal that she isn't the mid-season cure. I think it's an interesting way to take it, and honestly, Toei should trick people more, you know?
I think so too. You know what is a betrayal that I learned about today?
Okay.
You remember our girl Yui in Go Princess.
Yes.
You remember that she got Zetsuboed over and over and over
like
and
3
over.
times, yeah.
And she was a part of the team, but she was never really part of the team. You remember that?
Yeah.
Remember Yui? Yui was supposed to be a cure. She was supposed to be a green cure.
Huh.
And then Toei was like, never mind, we're just going to focus on Scarlet and the rest of them.
Now, are you absolutely certain of this, or is this a Cure 1 was a fake leak situation again?
I saw this on Twitter.
From
El Swago.
Okay.
Or someone in their replies.
Okay. That's not definitively a bad source.
It's not a good source necessarily. And I'm sure if it's wrong, AU will correct me, but for now I'm choosing to believe it. And if that's true, Yui deserved it.
Yui did deserve it, absolutely.
She deserved the world. Hey, you said that you didn't think that they would have 2 characters with the same name, but there are 2 Yuis. Aren't there?
Well, yeah, but there's not 2 cures named Yui. If she had been a cure, maybe they might not have named Yui from Delicious Party Yui. Maybe they would have named her something else.
Yeah, could be.
Okay.
Anyway.
So.
Oh, wait, really quick. I want to jump up on a soapbox since we were talking about Western fans being mad. You can feel like the writing was bad. That's fine. But at the end of the day, the show is not for you. Please be chill.
Yeah.
You know, like, sometimes we do a podcast talking about this show, so sometimes we are critical, but at the end of the day, I'm not like, fight the CEO of Toei mad because this show was kind of juvenile. When the first My Little Pony movie, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic movie came out in theaters, there were people who were like legitimately angry because it was so childish. Huh. And it's like, you do know who this movie was made for, right? And like, don't let your inner peace be disrupted by like that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be angry. It's not real.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Now, you asked a question, and I kind of sidetracked talking about, like, why some people were mad when they got to the reveal that Regina is not Cure Ace. Natalie, now, okay, this is gonna get censored, but you, Catherine, are a connoisseur of characters, characters who are self-assertive, who know what they want, don't take no for an answer, in general. How would you, does Natalie not fit that bill? Does she not belong on the same shelf as our queen, Laura?
Oh man, see, here's the
Bibbery,
thing.
also.
I feel like I had an answer that made sense for you when you asked me about this off mic. But like, oh no, you know what it was? We were talking about hot messes, and you were like, you usually like hot messes, and I explained the distinction. Here's the thing. I do like bitchy characters, and I think if she were the same age as the other girls, I would be all about it. Mm. But the fact that she's so much younger, like, her bitchiness isn't earned.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of amplified. Like, you know, if she were the same age as them or older, it would kind of make sense. But the fact that, like, it seems kind of haughty coming from, you know, this younger girl.
I want to see her and Akko be best friends so bad.
Akko.
Your muse.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because they're the same age, and they're both kind of haughty. I'm better than you children.
Yeah. Well, so, here's the thing. I kind of like it. She's not good at, she's too blunt, right? She tells Makoto, like, hey, you suck. And it makes Makoto feel bad. What she's trying to do is she's trying to toughen up these girls who she thinks need to learn a lesson. And it turns out she's right, in a sense. And she can, like, kind of, like, sense their hearts, and they can't fight the selfish king right now. But she's being harsh on purpose, and she seems to have an intrinsic ability to sense love, if that makes sense. So she could tell that Makoto was kind of, like, not putting her heart into it. Ai loves her. Ai's like, oh my god, that's my person, flies out of Mana's hands to go say hi to her. She was able to tell that Sebastian tries really hard to make, whatever dessert it was like peach bun rolls or something.
It was a cake, yeah.
Yeah. And she was like, oh my god, this is the most delicious thing. I kind of love her, but she is not the same type of gremlin as Erika, Kurumi, or Laura, or Kurara, for example.
Also, Erika's not bitchy.
That's true.
Erika's a goblin, but she's not bitchy. I need to make a Venn diagram because I like bitchy characters, I like goblin characters, I like bitchy goblin characters.
But not everyone is both.
Exactly, yeah. What would you make the third circle? Chaos? That kind of goes with goblin.
That's kind of goblin, yeah. And princess is kind of goes along with the bitchy.
Maybe?
Empty-headed?
I
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
likes...
Yui is empty-headed, but she's neither a goblin nor is she a bitch. Absolutely. Also, I do have to say that Natalie gave me big Rand vibes when she ate the dessert that Sebastian had made, because she's like, wow, it feels like I'm floating on a bubble and I'm bouncing on my butt, and then she has like a little like chibi version of herself in the background. It's like, you and Rand need to be friends immediately.
Absolutely. So I think she'll grow on me for sure, and I like her design. I like Cure Ace's design, but my immediate reaction to her is, who the fuck are you?
Absolutely. Also, her transformation, it's fire. It's literally fire.
It's the best transformation in Precure, I think. The first time I saw it was on Twitter, and I totally forgot what she looked like. I just remembered the flames. But I sent it to Joel at the time, and I went, this is going to be your favorite character.
Yeah, absolutely. She wreathes herself in flames. It feels like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it definitely feels like it's a Sailor Moon reference, the way that she's kind of silhouetted and she has like stars as like her background. And can confirm from the wiki that she indeed gets aged up, which of course we knew as soon as we saw like how small she is in real life. But she's 17 after her transformation, so I think she's older than the girls post-transformation, younger than them pre-transformation.
Is it because her spirit is older, do you think? We gotta...
I have no idea.
We gotta see what this show tells us about her.
Also, we know that the bad guys are the 7 deadly sins, and I want to go back to that in a second, although I can tell that you have something you are very excited to talk about. But she, when she transforms, has 7 flames in the shape of a heart. And I counted that and I went, that's very interesting. Now, I think people know about the 7 sins because they're in everything and because they make an interesting template for bad guys. But there's also the 7 heavenly virtues, which we don't talk about as much because nice characters aren't as fun usually. But maybe that's what they're going with her. Maybe she's like an angel compared to the devils of the selfishes.
Oh, could be.
Now, you had something you wanted to say.
I did. So, I mean, as long as we're talking about Doki Doki, we may as well lean into it and talk about all the new characters. Leva came on screen, and I went, I'm not sure I like what they're doing there.
I think we both said, oh no, like at the same time.
Yeah, so I don't know if our listeners are familiar with the trope of queer coding. I know some people are sensitive about that word, and so I want to be clear that, like, I'm using an academic term. I'm not calling anybody anything. But essentially, it's the use of exaggerated LGBT stereotypes, usually gay or trans men.
Or drag, yeah.
But it's the use of those stereotypes on villain characters to exaggerate how off they are, right? So an example is Ursula from The Little Mermaid is based off of a famous drag queen at the time. Jafar is very effeminate and has a lot of like feminine facial features. This is kind of repeated a lot throughout classic Disney, and we have seen it in Precure a little bit as well, but especially with this character. And so I don't think they're going for he is a trans woman or a drag queen. I think they're going for look at this guy, I guess. You know what I mean?
It's hard to put my finger on, and I reached out to AU because I was curious. AU has a lot more connections in the fandom and has been in the fandom a lot longer, and I said, like, does this, like, leave a bad taste in your mouth, or am I just putting, like, weird Western expectations on Japanese media? And they said, no, he does trouble some older fans from the West who see it as kind of a problematic trope. Apparently next season, Happiness Charge has another character who's very similar, but then the season after that is Go Princess, which has Close, who is my favorite villainous character from Precure, who is a man who's into feminine stuff and, like, isn't ashamed of it. They don't play it off as a joke. He doesn't dress. The thing that gets me about Leva is that he wears lipstick, more power to him, but has a 5 o'clock shadow. And to me, like, the 5 o'clock shadow talks about someone, like, it's a trope that you give someone who is kind of lazy
Who's
and
kind of gross.
shave, but then the lipstick is, like, prettying it up, so it's like this weird dichotomy between the two.
Right, whereas, like, Close is actually just pretty.
Yeah, he loves looking good.
He really cares about his looks. So, I get that, you know, it's an older season and different cultures and whatever, but I don't care for this kind of style of character, and I'm glad that the series seems to be moving away from it as a whole. I wouldn't care for it even if I wasn't, you know, pro-trans people, because, like you said, it's just incongruent. Like, either you care about being pretty or you scrunkly. You gotta pick. You don't get to be scrunkly and pretty.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a little lazy too, just like, oh, this person's evil because, you know, whatever. Interesting history fact, one of the reasons why it's so common in the West, I don't know about in Japan, but for a time, there was a strict moral guideline, and it had a name, I can't remember what it was, but Hollywood was not allowed to depict gay or trans, even though I don't think trans was, like, widely known about at the time, but they weren't allowed to depict alternative lifestyles in a positive light. So if there are good characters who are gay, one or more of them will die, and if there's a bad guy, it's okay for them to be queer-coded or whatever, effeminate men and masculine women, because they're bad guys and you're clearly showing them having their comeuppance. Same with references to drugs and stuff. And I'm against that, and I'm glad that we live in a different time now.
Yes. That said, Leva and, is he Ula, the short guy? Gula, thank you. Leva and Gula are married.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
they are.
and Leva and Belle are brothers, and they hate each other.
Yes, absolutely. So these two show up, and the minor trio are immediately like put off. They're like, "Ugh, it's you." And in the Japanese version, Gula has a nickname for Belle, and Belle gets really mad. He's like, "I told you not to call me that." And so there's a contentious relationship between the two new guys and the three old guys. They don't get along, and I'm guessing that the trio is either going to be used only for comedic effect, is going to betray the other two in an effort to like win favor or something, or they'll have to like power up at some point. What I want to talk about is I want to revisit the 7 Deadly Sins discourse. At this point, I think we have met all the generals that we're going to meet throughout the season, and spoiler alert, I have peeked at the wiki, and yeah, it's just these 5 that we're going to meet. So, 7 Deadly Sins. You have wrath, you have pride, you have envy, you have greed and gluttony, you have lust, and sloth. 2 of them are not represented because there's only 5 generals, unless Regina counts, which you have told me off mic that apparently she does have a sin assigned to her, but who knows if she took it after one of the other 2 were killed before the season started in the manga or whatever. But I think that I'm going to say Ira still strikes me as wrath, again because Ira is also sounds very close to ire. Belle strikes me as pride, only because we now know that his goal is to become the king. Like, he's like, I want to become the real king, and that seems like a very proud vanity thing to do. Marmo kind of strikes me as sloth. She's not super lazy, but in the first episode, she waited till after Ira had summoned a monster to have her monster come in, and that feels lazy. Like, I'm gonna let you do most of the work and then I'll take credit for it. Gula has to be gluttony. The first thing he does is he eats an entire chicken, and he has like shark teeth that he uses to bite through things. And then Leva, I think it's envy. I think the joke they're trying to go for is that he's a man who's envious of female beauty. So I think that's why he has the lipstick.
Okay, that's not bad. Okay, I could vibe with that. I still think that Belle is sloth, and I think of Marmo as
prideful.
Yeah.
She's worried about her appearances in a couple of episodes, so I could absolutely understand that.
Yeah.
So. It's a fun thing. I think I'm probably going to look up what they are because we've now officially met all of the characters, and then we can discuss it next episode. But I like Shark Boy. I really like Gula. He might be my favorite of the 5 generals overall.
It's really easy to overdo certain tropes with characters that are meant to represent gluttony, and I think you know what I mean by that. But I like this take on it. I like him as like a shark guy.
Yes.
You know, he's not like just this lazy, I'm gonna eat everything in front of me. He's like really aggressive and violent, and I like that a lot. He's not as creepy as the Full Metal Alchemist gluttony,
absolutely,
but he does give off the same intimidating vibes.
I loved him eating oh gosh, what's her name? Rosetta. He ate Rosetta's shield, and he was like, this is tasty. Or there's the part where they're in the bowling alley, and Leva uses his hat. He's kind of like that James Bond villain with the hat that could cut through things. He uses his hat to knock over the pins, and Ira's just like, that's not how you're supposed to bowl. And then Gula eats one of the bowling balls, and he goes, oh, this tastes nasty. And Marmo's like, you're not supposed to eat it, you hick. So I really enjoyed the interactions between these weirdos. Let's talk about Ai, because Ai has had some developments in these episodes. In the episode when Mana was depressed and wasn't eating, and by the way, depression is no joke. I don't know. It's funny to me when you talk about like this bright, colorful, cheerful show where like friendship wins the day, to talk about a character kind of like being depressed. It's sort of like the dichotomy of the two. But if you think you have depression in real life, please seek help. But while Mana's having her episode of like not believing in herself, you hear Ai going like, Kira Pa, or whatever it is that she says before using her magic baby powers. Mana's mom comes in holding Ai and goes, Mana, look after your baby sister. And Mana goes, what? And she's like, this is your baby sister, take it. And so apparently Ai has the power to mind parasite herself into memories, like that episode of Rick and Morty. And like, I can't help but feel that this is going to be relevant later. Like, I think maybe Ai's going to go up to the Selfish King and, like, boop his nose and use magic powers to make him think that she's his daughter, and then he'll be like, I can't destroy a world with a baby as cute as this. And that's how they save the day or something. I don't know.
Oh, man, I like that. Oh, what if, this is probably not it, but what if there was some weird mind parasite thing going on, and this new girl is the actual Regina.
Oh.
And the Regina we know is just like a ghost or a projection or something.
That is very interesting.
I just can't help but feel like there's some sort of connection there. Like, I really loves Regina, and the only other person we've seen her really love is this new person, Natalie. And this new person, like, seems to know what's going on, so there's gotta be something.
Well, and when I mentioned this in the Succinct Summary, but when Cure A shows up and they actually, like, look eye to eye to each other, Regina has this, like, she, like, clutches her chest, and she's like, I have to destroy this person, but we don't get that from the others. Belle doesn't be like, I have to destroy her, and that sort of thing, so I think there's some kind of connection. What if... This is dumb crack theory, and I don't believe this is true, but if it did, that'd be really amazing. Gula and Leva are mentioned as having conquered 3 other worlds for the Greed King, while Ira, Marmo, and Belle have struggled with the human world. So what if every world is like a parallel world? And what if there's Reginas from all different worlds? So Regina is like universe 1-B-A, and Natalie is universe 2-C-cat or something. So they're like connected, but they're not the same person.
Natalie is from the universe where all people are put to death at age 17. So you reach peak emotional maturity in the 4th grade.
Yes, I love that. Also, I started to talk in that same episode when she's comforting Mana. She says, like, Mana, I love. She still can't do, like, full sentences, but she's growing as a person, which I think all baby Kiers do at this point. I can't think of one who hasn't, but I'm interested to see if she will undergo a metamorphosis and be, like, a 2-year-old in the next couple of episodes, and then maybe eventually a 5-year-old.
Will she do a Kome, or will she remain baby?
Exactly, yes. Last thing that I want to talk about. Last thing about Doki Doki. In the episode when Mana loses her mojo and then gets it back, when she does get it back, she briefly glows like pink. And if you've ever seen Dragon Ball Z, it kind of reminded me of the Kaioken. And the other girls see it, they notice it, they're like, what was that? And then she and Ace are fighting the bad guys, and they're kicking butt. And in the next episode, Makoto is kind of having a moment of self-doubt about her singing. When she gets her mojo back, she gets this purple aura that lasts longer than Mana's, and when Ace uses her finishing move, what she does is she kind of like takes lipstick and paints it across her lips, and then she creates like a giant heart, and then she shoots it like a gun. She literally says like bang, and she fires the heart at the enemy. But the lipstick is now colored purple in that episode. The heart is purple, and it's a Makoto episode. So I think that I accidentally called this when I came up with Kiers that could switch colors with each other for my own OC series, because it seems like, I'm assuming, that she can absorb the colors of the other Kiers when it's their time to shine. But, keeping that in mind, I rewatched episode 23, and it doesn't appear that her heart is pink. It appears that it's still the red color. So I'm predicting that next 2 episodes will be Alice and Rika, and then the next episode it'll be Mana learning another lesson, and that's when we're going to see the pink heart Ace bang, or whatever the attack is called. Ace shoot, I believe.
Okay. Really quick, as long as we're talking about that, I just want to shout out how she seems to have inspired Tropical Rouge.
Oh, very strongly.
Like, overtly, she says something about, like, Rouge Rod, which is very close to the name of the weapon from Tropical Rouge.
Yes.
And then she blows the bubble and it becomes her attack. So, like, 100% Tropical Rouge was inspired by her, I'm certain.
Absolutely. I know that, especially with recent events in the last couple of years, maybe Toei doesn't have, like, the manpower and they have to focus on profits, which really sucks, but I wish that we saw more interactions between different seasons. Like, I wish every time a new season came out, there was, like, a dedicated crossover team that could take on, like, 4 or 5 different projects of drawing, you know, the Doki Doki girls with Tropical Rouge. They could draw Tropical Rouge with the original Futariwa if people want that. You know, I think that would be really neat.
Absolutely.
Sango meeting Karara. Please make it happen, Toei. I would pay money for this.
They need to be friends. Imagine Sango doing Kirara's hair.
Yes, exactly. Let me just double check, make sure that we don't have anything else about Doki Doki, but I'm about ready to move on if you are.
You know what? I never actually asked you about Doki Doki.
Oh, did I like these episodes?
Did you like it?
I think I like the role that Ace is now playing. I like her introduction. I like her chemistry with the other girls as much as it is. I still kind of don't really get Mana and Makoto's moments of doubt in these episodes, because Mana is basically like, oh no, my friend hates me, my friend who is clearly possessed by an evil spirit, this has happened once before, and I know that there's a real Regina that's being controlled by the evilness. So, like, I get it. I get if you suddenly shouted that you hated me, or if, like, my mom, like, I don't know, pulled a gun on me or something, like, it's very traumatic. I absolutely get it. But in a world with magic, it seems silly to think that she can't fix this unless Regina, like, literally died. And that doesn't seem to be the case. And then Makoto, so she says that she only sings for the princess, but I don't think she started singing when she met the princess. I think she started singing and then met the princess. And so her being like, oh, the only one I sing for is the princess. No, it's not. You liar. So
I really do feel like they play kind of loose and fast with character motivations.
A little bit, yeah. I'd say that it's not their strongest point, but, like, no, I liked a lot about these episodes. Also, I want to shout out, Ace has this moment where she, like, gosh, you should just watch episode 24 if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it in a while, or you haven't seen it at all. But she does, like, this spin dodge attack around one of the Disdain's punches or whatever, and then she very lightly just puts, like, the tip of her finger against the monster, and then there's this shockwave, and it just goes flying. That doesn't make sense physics-wise. I don't think anyone could do that in real life, but god damn is that cool.
It was so cool. We were really excited. And then Mana does this, like, fantastic flip, and then she kicks it.
Yes!
That fight was really fun to watch.
It was really good. There's another one that I've seen on Twitter many, many moons ago before I knew we were going to watch Doki Doki now in our lives. But Alice has one coming up that I'm really excited for too, but I can't tell where it happens.
Excited.
One thing I did want to point out, Regina being put into, like, a comatose state. By the way, the Greed King put her into, like, a pearl to, like, heal up, I guess, like a Saiyan healing pod. But she's kind of now been captured again by the bad guys. And I think it's interesting because right when they rescued the princess and everything seems good, I mean, I guess they still need her to, like, thaw out of her crystal, but, like, she's safe from the bad guys. Now Mana has a personal connection to Regina, and eventually I think that she's going to decide that she needs to defeat the Greed King in order to save Regina. And I think that's really clever, changing one personal motivation for another as the show goes on. Not all Precure seasons do that as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm ready to move on to Delicious Party, and this time I will start the discussion properly. Did you like this week's episode?
It was okay. I didn't dislike it, but it wasn't one of my favorites.
Ask me.
Did you like this episode?
No, there wasn't enough Narcistoru.
There wasn't enough Narcistoru Mari action as they pitch their wits against each other.
I want the buddy cop shenanigans.
Yeah.
I love character dynamics when they hate each other.
Yeah, well, and, like, Biberi was kind of a fun character to have around, and Ryu was a fun character to have around as they try to, like, figure out their redemption arcs, and Toa was like that as well in Go Princess. So I think that there's more content that we could have had from Mary and Narcistoru, and as AU has pointed out, we've lost a couple of episodes, so maybe there was a longer thing here. Do you think he will be reformed, or do you think there will be a Prison Break style situation with him?
I think there will be a Prison Break. Like, if he's going to be in the show again, which is not determined. He could just be in jail forever for the rest of the season.
We see him in the final episode, like, waving from the background, and that's all he gets.
But if he's in the show again, I think he can't be reformed off screen. I think it has to be through interactions with our main cast.
Yes. On that point, I have two quick notes. One, I kind of wish that Yui, Ren, Kokone, Amane, anyone had tried to, like, help him. Like, I know he's an awful person, but I strongly feel as though one of the core themes throughout all Precure seasons is this sort of sense of empathy, and I feel like they could have gotten that even a little, like, Yui could have offered him a plate of onigiri, right? And he could be like, no, I'm never going to eat it. And that's fine. You know, it takes time for characters to turn around. But if there is a prison break scene later, I want him to remember how kind the Precure were to him. And then when Secretoru, like, says, like, he's crap or whatever, like, what are you doing here, you piece of trash? I want him to remember the time that Yui and Mary were nice to him, and I want that to be how he turns.
This is not a Go Princess episode, but you mentioned in the Discord that the scene with Shut having his makeup only half done in Go Princess, and Miss Shamor being like, we have to pause the fight so I can help him do his makeup.
This man is distressed.
Yes, you can't fight your best if you don't look your best. Like, that was so humanizing, and that led to him, I think, eventually being like, I don't want to fight these girls because they're so nice and they're people.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens with Narcistoru. I assume we will get at least a little bit more about his backstory if there's time. I also saw someone saying, weird that Secretoru brought Spiritoru back online with this, the special Delicious Stone, but he wasn't in this episode. To which I would say, if her plan is to go to the Ku Kingdom in secret, I don't think Spiritoru could pull that off. They'd see this weird robot man and be like, what is this?
What did she actually go there for?
To steal some recipes.
She could have stolen peepees from the human realm.
I don't know.
Why did she need Cook Kingdom peepees?
I think she went because she wanted to capture a couple of the recipe like, there were more of them concentrated there than you would find in the human world without, like, some kind of a radar device, which she has. I think it's just awfully convenient that even though the delicious party girls have only gone to the Ku Kingdom once for, like, 4 hours, that happened to be the exact window that Secretoru attacked for.
I will say, shout out to the fact that she's a ninja, apparently.
Yes! That's so good. She had a powder that she used to disable one of the guards who was coming after her.
And then she stole his clothes, which was really funny.
Absolutely. I think she looks really good with the half mask pulled up over her mouth, which is for ventilation, I think.
Everybody looks good with that half mask. Wear your masks, folks. Does that count as getting political? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that apparently the Ku Kingdom having, like, they have a pond where you can fish out, like, side dishes, and who decides what a side dish is, and then they have, like, growing onigiri plants and just a bunch of, you know, crazy stuff from the imagination of a child. It's all science, which really blew my mind.
They bred the plants to do that on purpose.
Yes.
Really quick, just because you mentioned it, and I'm sure AU will speak to more to this when they hear this episode, but Japan is an extremely traditional culture, and so there is a specific set of food that is side dishes.
Oh, yeah,
so
absolutely.
You being like, who decides what a side dish is? Tradition.
Yeah, well,
Tradition.
Yeah, I think they mentioned it before they said that they use science to engineer everything. I thought this was like a magical world, you know, like the land of spirits or whatever. And so I thought that there was like some omniscient, like, god that created this pond and only filled it with food that is considered a side dish. But, like, what if in 100 years, culturally, steak is no longer a side dish? What if it's a main course? Or, you know, what if it changes? Does the pond change in real time? But now that I know the pond is the creation of mortal hands, I know that they'll just change the algorithm. They'll change a 2 to a 3 or something, and then it'll be populated with new items.
Oh my god, do they have nanobite technology?
I mean, they might. Nanobite?
I knew you'd like that.
Anything else that you want to shout out from this episode?
Kome's cute.
Kome being proud of her abilities is so cute. I already liked Kome as a a one-dimensional cute character, like at the beginning of the series. And then we had some episodes where she got a little bit more fleshed out. She had her fight with Pam Pam, and she had the green pepper situation. But I think that her being super proud of her abilities added another dimension to her character, and I'm liking her so much.
Absolutely. Other than that, I don't really have much to say. People were really excited for Surfy to show up.
Yeah.
I didn't like her. I thought she was annoying.
Okay, see, I wouldn't go that far. I would say that she's a nice side character, but, like, you didn't, like, I couldn't differentiate her from other side characters we've had in other episodes.
I never feel anything for, like, the random one-off characters, like the ones they invent for the One Piece movies, for example.
Sure.
And so if we had more time with her, I would probably like her, because she's pretty cute, and I like her color palette and whatever, but as it is, it's just kind of like, meh.
Yeah, I hope she shows up some more. I hope that she gets a connection with Takumi, being that they're both fighting Foodons, but it definitely seems like they could just write her out of the show the same way they did with Narcistoru, and I think that her character would benefit from being in more episodes. She can be an infrequent guest star like Amane's brothers, twin brothers.
Absolutely.
So that takes us to Doki Doki Heartfelt Love Messages. And
heartfelt thoughts in a bottle from the crew. Doki Doki.
Doki Doki. So AU loved you know, she was adorable, and they are loved. Secretoru in action, oh my god. The world of Ku Kingdom is so cool, and the scene where they were returning home made her scream because she did not see that coming at all. WTF, OMG.
Do you think they mean the scene with all the other cures?
Uh-huh, yeah. Were they... Okay, so if you haven't seen this episode, why are you listening to our podcast discussing it? But they're going through the wormhole between the Ku Kingdom and the human world, and just randomly images of past episodes of other Precure seasons showed up. And there's a good reason for it, because the movie came out over in Japan, and there was a short that had all of the characters in it. Maybe even in the main movie, I'm pretty sure it was just the short. So, like, they wanted to, like, get you excited. And I get that. But if I were watching an episode of, I don't know, NCIS Los Angeles, and they just put the guy behind bars, he's in handcuffs, and they're like, wow, great job, team. And then one of them, their phone started ringing, and they flipped it open, and it was the Animaniacs, and it was just them saying, like, we're coming to you, Steve, or whatever the name of the characters are in NCIS. And then he flipped the phone closed and went, that was kind of loony, and that's where the episode ended, I would be confused. I'd be like, what is this? And I think it's the same thing. It didn't integrate into the flow of the episode at all, and I wonder if they had made a better effort, if there could have been an explanation as to why they saw it. Maybe there would be like a special Ku Kingdom wishing well that Ran uses, and for some reason it shows them images of the other girls.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot.
Okay.
I really liked James's contribution this week. Aside from his thoughts on, you know, the good faces in this episode, many of which will probably make it in the thumbnail, Surfy being adorable, Secretoru being an incredible ninja. Oh, he mentioned that we finally saw her without her hat. I didn't even notice. I forgot she usually wore a hat.
It's so small and kind of innocuous, really.
I was just distracted by the ninja mask. But my favorite thing that James had to say was, Mari to Narcistoru, if only there was some place where you could reflect about your actions. Yui, do you mean jail? Mari, oh man, I already let him go free. Which is apparently a Family Guy reference, which is pretty good. But
absolutely.
It cracked me up.
I thank you, James, that one welder guy. Thank you, AU, Magical Girl AU, for all of your contributions. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's so exciting to have two people contributing thoughts. Speaking of people contributing thoughts, we had someone on the Reddit.
Yes. After last week's episode where we discussed about whether or not there are hints to next season in the current season of Precure,
Sorry for any of the cling-clanging folks. Nova is wagging her tail underneath the podcast table, and she's too cute to send away.
Xander124, who I believe has commented on the Reddit before. This is the problem with being forgetful. Sometimes you're like, have I seen that screen name before? But they basically just pointed out that there's like no official confirmation that it's really a thing and that we shouldn't put too much thought into it. I think it's kind of an interesting exercise, and I kind of hope that there is like secret messages, but at the same time, I'm not going to be heartbroken if next season doesn't have to do with weddings. I'll just be like, oh darn, I had a theory and it was wrong. My bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Xander, for contributing your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Joel, it's a tragedy. There is no episode 30 of Delicious Party Precure.
Isn't there?
No, because, I'm looking at our scratch pad, and there's no episode title, so it must not exist.
Now, I can tell you for sure that it is about Mary's sausages? It's Mary is cooking something in the next
you're
episode.
not making this up.
No, I'm not. It's a festival episode, and it's about Mary trying to perfect his ingredients, but I did not write the episode title down. I'm too lazy to look it up, so I'm going to say that Mary realizes that in order to get information, the juicy deets on Godats and the Boondaroo gang, that he needs to win over Narcistoru. And the only way to do that is to fix the wound in Narcitoru's heart, the scar,
with food.
With the food specifically that Narcitoru's dead mother used to make for him, and he's never been able to perfect the recipe. So Mari and Narcitoru will slowly come together to cook the perfect cooked sausage and potato.
Okay, I've got an episode title.
Okay.
All right, you ready? Wieners in a pinch, Narcitoru's soft heart.
I love it.
That is not your bear.
And that has been your toot final thoughts. Outro goes here. Thanks for listening, everyone, and don't forget to enjoy those wieners.
Sorry for the exclamation. Nova stole a bear.
No. How dare you?
Noodle, how could you?
Noodle!
No, I'm not doing this.
Did she learn anything from it? Not really. She's just more committed to murder.
I'm not a baby. I'm a man. You swallowed deadly poison. Ruh-roh.
Absolutely. 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 Absolutely.
Thank you all for joining us for another delicious plateful of
Cure of the What Now.
Please take a moment to rate and review wherever you get your podcasts from.
Or if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment, a like, or lick that subscribe bell so you know when the new episodes are going up.
Did you just say lick it?
Well, yeah, we're baking delicious foods. It's a delicious party.
Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at PirateGhostHost. Please don't lick me.
Can you even lick a ghost? I'm on Twitter at Kotwin_pod.
KOTWN_pod.
Absolutely. And as always, the Discord link is in the Twitter bio and also in the YouTube description.
Come join us for weekly discussions, streams, and all of the precure your heart can handle. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yum. Or no, I'm full.